All right, I call us to order. Is that, okay, all right, cool. So I guess the first one is roll call and introductions. Roll call and introductions, and then the election of hopefully another co-chair. Do we want to get that kind of started? Does anyone? How do we just say we're here? How do we do it?
I would just go around the table and, state your name, right? That's what you've been doing.
Yeah. Okay. National Route Song here. Shelby Ford, present.
Matt Needler, present. I think that's it.
Yeah.
So, all right, on to the first one, election of a co-chair. Does anybody want to volunteer? And
So I said I will volunteer unless you are really jumping on.
I would be happy to volunteer in a few months, but at this moment, like just planning this big event we have coming up next week is taking a lot, and then we're gonna be wrapping up the report for a few weeks after that, so that's definitely gonna take most of my time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will gladly volunteer.
okay,
Perfect.
do I have to approve that? Or does that get voted on or?
No, I think that's fine if you're all on agreement.
Yeah.
All right. Next is the approval of the agenda. Is that from this agenda or is that approving last?
That's agenda.
And so unless there are any changes, to the agenda, we can go ahead with it as drafted.
I don't have any changes. Do you?
We'll keep it all on and see if we can get to it all today.
All right, so we'll check that one off. Approval of the minutes from last week. Any questions or concerns about that? I think it was pretty recorded pretty well.
So for that, someone wants to make a motion to approve the minutes. We don't have anyone to use my voice vote.
Motion to approve it?
Seconded?
Second, all right.
Yeah, the only
Yeah.
only thing I noticed that I thought I had asked Ash, is that after discussing this document with Pamela, we agreed that this could be removed from our agenda
Oh,
for the coming meetings,
okay.
because she's the one who had sent this to Ash, and that's why it was on there. And we agreed that in the conflict resolution policy that we had passed at the last meeting, that had removed the need for this.
Okay.
And so unless any of you had any objections, I would move to remove this document off of our agenda for discussion.
Yes, awesome. Second that.
Is that on the agenda?
Under other business.
Oh, there it is. It's under 3 tabled items, other business, on anti, yeah, okay.
That doesn't.
I moved to remove that. Yeah,
Sorry for
I
the
did.
approval of the agenda.
Yeah, I thought I had already mentioned that to Ash, but maybe they wanted us to officially vote on it before they removed it.
Okay, I'll second the removal of that.
So that's done. Now on to reports. Since we have covered out anything to report, I don't have anything. We do have that thing tomorrow, right, at the public library,
It's actually a week from tomorrow.
next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I was gonna say, I don't think I make this Tuesday.
I do not believe I have any reports for this week. I knew we were having the guest speaker, so I wanted to make sure we weren't going too hard on everything. Pretty bad. Yeah, so
Do you have anything to report on? Oh, yeah, I would just report from the special committee, just that, yeah, we have officially sent out invitations, to our public event. And you'll be getting yours soon, Mary. But to our public event, next Tuesday at the public library, where we are planning to, well, first of all, it's gonna be hosted by us. And if you guys are able to attend, you're welcome. And you're also welcome to attend like the volunteer trainings to help like facilitate the event, or just to attend as the public. Either way, whatever you have time for. And yeah, that's a 2-hour event planned where we hope to get, we're really hoping to get as many marginalized members of the community to come and speak for themselves on their safety needs. So in the invitation we sent, there's also a flyer. We encourage you to, send that out to especially people who work with marginalized people. We've already given a big stack to Beacon. And I gave a stack to, I know some people that give out meals in the park. Jason and I are planning to, do some one-on-one outreach, with folks that are unhoused in our community as well, near the end of this week. Just passing out those flyers. So, yeah, we're, and we're already doing targeted outreach like we have done already with Heading Home. We're doing targeted outreach with key stakeholders in our community before the event. And we also plan to follow up and do more outreach after the event with anyone who wants to talk to us before putting everything together into our analysis and recommendations. So yeah, that's the only update. Yeah, so CGM is officially planning to have their volunteers help facilitate in the breakout rooms, where people are going to be asked to give their feedback to us in more personalized settings. And we also have volunteers from Net Impact Club at Kelly School of Business at IU. They're doing evidence-based research for us on some public safety policy options, particularly researching like cost-benefit analysis and proven ways to reduce crime using local data. So yeah, that's exciting. I haven't seen their work yet, but they're working on it and I'm looking forward to seeing it soon. So
Sounds like you have a lot of moving parts going on.
it's exciting because we've been doing so much work for like years now and it's finally coming together. So yeah, it's a very exciting time.
I think that's gonna be really nice for our yearly report too, to be able to say, look, these are all our things, and be able to provide those like more solid, backed up recommendations of like, this is what we're hearing, this is what we were able to find. I know it's on that Tuesday from 5 to 7.
5 to 7, yeah.
And you're Zooming?
It's also Zoom. We're really encouraging people to attend in person, but Zoom is available as well.
I will not be able to be there at 5, but I might be able to make it there for like the last hour or something through Zoom, just because I have another appointment from 5, but just to try and see how it's going.
That's definitely okay. You'll probably miss our beginning presentation, but they may be able to sneak you into the ongoing Zoom session. We're gonna have hopefully just one breakout room for Zoom, and then we'll have like a wrap up, maybe 15-20 minutes at the end of wrap up. So yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to add from?
No, do you think you're gonna attend?
My plan was to do the whole thing on Zoom. My daughter is in speech therapy during that time,
Okay.
so I'm with my other daughter, but I can put
Yeah,
a show
that's
on
great.
her and then Zoom
Yeah.
from my phone.
And if you guys don't mind, if you could both register online, because we do have targeted questions as well for everyone that we're gonna put into their survey questions. So yeah, if you don't mind registering online, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Any reports from staff or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. I'll just mention, I know we are down several folks on the commission. Council members have been meeting to fill a number of open commission seats, not just your commission. So that's an ongoing process. I'm hoping we'll get some additional appointments made in the next month or two. So just stay tuned. Thank you, Matthew, for being willing to serve, and welcome. I know this is your second meeting, but hopefully we'll have some more folks join you all as soon as possible.
Good stuff.
I did want to report on, for the research committee, we are kind of finishing up this past year's work. We all have, I have my own individual research project, and then the other things we're looking at research, and our main focus is figuring out what's next. Because we're going to start working on the yearly report, and then we'll probably come to you guys and, ask like, what should research focus on going forward? I know that you're down to only 2 members now, so I do invite, if you ever wanted to join, you can always ask during this report time. If you're interested in joining either the committee or what is it called?
Oh, the alternative public special committee.
The special.
Yeah, we're actually not seeking new members.
Okay.
That committee, the reason it's a special committee is because it's going to immediately dissolve once we turn in our recommendations.
Oh, okay, got you.
And so we specifically wanted the members who had already been working on it and had the time to pursue it to basically be a committee just for the time needed to finish that up.
Okay.
And then it's gonna dissolve. So yeah, that's actually something we're gonna need to discuss at that time. Once we turn in the recommendations, the whole commission should decide, do we want another committee on alternative public safety to follow up that work, you know, or what are our next steps?
Okay.
But yeah, the special committee actually is gonna end when we turn in our recommendations.
Okay.
That is how that was set up.
Quick question, just so, and how many research committees are there? There's yours and then your guys's, right?
There's two right now.
There's two, okay.
Yeah, yes. And so that's you and Jason that's on that
Yes.
right now.
And what's yours on?
Ours is on research.
Just research, okay.
Yeah, general research. So we either make the recommendation.
And it's a standing committee. So
Yeah.
yeah, if people can jump on it.
I would be interested in looking into that if you don't mind. That's
Okay.
kind of the reason I kind of got into this, so hopefully
Yeah.
get into involvement. some
And
research.
more informing what's coming next for research. So it would be a perfect time for you to get in on it.
Lovely,
You could help us in that new formation of it all.
okay, perfect, that would be great. All right, I guess we're on to, is that everything for reports from everybody, I think? All right, so reports from public comment, is there anybody watching?
We do have a couple folks on Zoom. If you would like to speak during this part of the meeting, you can let us know by raising your hand. And I recognize both of them, so I'm hoping they know how to raise their hand, but give it just a moment. Don't see hands going up. I think no.
All right. So I believe it's time for a brief recess. We got through that pretty quick. Do we need one or?
I'm suggesting, no,
Yeah.
it takes a bit longer to get to that, from them and giving guest speakers and others.
That's what I was looking towards.
And Jason says he's not gonna make it today, so he'll have to watch the video later.
Perfect. All right, well, I guess then we can move on to our guest speakers.
All right.
All right, awesome.
Join you at the table if that's okay. Absolutely.
And Mary, I've got slides to share so that you can sit where you can see the screen.
Sure. Fantastic.
Well, thanks again for inviting us to make a presentation. We are just happy to be here. I'm Mary Morgan with Heading Home of South Central Indiana. And this is yeah. We're a small but mighty crew. We're just going to give you today a little background on Heading Home, some of our current projects, and then really here just to answer any questions or get any feedback that you might want to give. I'm actually not sure, were any of you involved in the formation of Heading Home? It was a really large working group that was convened. Okay, so I'm going to give just a little bit of background on that. Going back to 2014, the South Central Housing Network, which is a group of agencies that receive federal funding for this region, created the Heading Home Plan. It was a strategic plan designed to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-repeating, and strengthen housing security in the 6 counties: Monroe, Morgan, Lawrence, Owen, Greene, and Martin, which comprises Region 10 for the state. Like many plans that rely on volunteers to implement, there just wasn't that strong implementation, and so it kind of sat on the shelf for a few years. Fast forward to the pandemic, when it became clear that community overall was facing a crisis, but there was particular concern for people who were unhoused and vulnerable. So the Community Foundation of Bloomington and Monroe County, the United Way, the city, the Monroe County government, and others convened a pretty large working group of over 100 people from cross sectors. So it was nonprofits, it was government, it was IU, business community, and others to reevaluate that original plan and see where we went from there. I was actually a part of that group, not joining Heading Home because it hadn't been created. And we broke into committees, looked at promising practices in other communities. There was a map and gap committee, which looked at the current status and where gaps in services existed. A data dashboard, look at how we're collecting data for this community and what our needs are. So that creation or update of the plan coincided with the availability of federal funding through the ARPA program, American Rescue Act. And so at the end of the period, when we were developing that plan, one of the key points was who's going to implement that plan, who's really going to take leadership in terms of like making sure that this plan is moves forward. And so the city and the county contributed some funding for the two of us, and programmatic funding as well. And I joined Heading Home in late 2021, and Tatiana came on in early 2022. Is it right? I keep thinking it feels like we've been working on this forever, but it's only been a little over a year. So that's kind of the background and where we are now. Next slide, Stephen. Thanks.
Sorry, so I thought Heading Home was housed under United Way.
So
Is it housed under the city?
no, it's not housed under the city.
Okay.
We have offices at United Way as part of their partnership with us. So it's kind of an odd structure. We are.
Sorry if you were gonna get to that.
No, this is fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, I actually, if you want to take a question around this presentation, that's totally fine. So they are providing kind of the back support for us. So they have offices there. We still have emails with them. They are the fiduciary agent. So all of the funding runs through United Way. But it's not just a United Way initiative. It's truly that I have an advisory board that includes members from the city, the county, United Way, the Community Foundation, Bloomington Township, and Perry Township. So those are all sort of funders that came together and meet once a month to guide our work. Yeah, so but United Way is, because of where our offices are there, they're often seen as the lead partner. Okay. So these are just some of the things we're going to touch on. And you can go to the next slide. And keep on going. These are just some of the examples of projects we've done. Part of them are with from the plan itself that we're implementing, and part are just things that, as we've been talking with partners and others in the community that are doing that frontline work, needs kind of are identified, and we're not direct services provider, but we're looking for ways that we can do work that benefits the broader community region. So that no single agency maybe is doing that right now, but they have a need, and multiple agencies have that need. And the Heading Home Guide is one of those. So we felt like we needed some centralized location where housing resources were available. Deborah Meyerson had done some work when she was at SIHO before that dissolved. And so we contracted with her to do some, first of all, just kind of market analysis and talk to agencies and see what their needs were. And we didn't want to recreate the wheel if that wasn't really needed. But we did identify the need, and so worked to develop this online resource. It's Heading Home Guide. I'd encourage you to check it out. We've committed to updating it twice a year. So we are, and we're still kind of in the tweaking phase from this launch that just happened last month. And so hopefully we will be able to expand it. We have primarily the bulk of the resources are from Monroe and Morgan counties, because those are sort of more population densities and the places that have larger shelters and services. But we do have some for other counties, and we're hoping to expand that as well. Next slide. This is something that we participated in with the IU Kelly Institute for Social Impact. They have an annual case competition and they have a partner agency. And so we were the partner this year, and we asked the student teams to develop proposals for an anti-stigma campaign and an education campaign. So one of the things we encounter fairly frequently is nobody's doing anything to help housing security or to address homelessness. And of course, as you all know, a lot of people and agencies are doing a lot. So we wanted to have more formalized campaign to get that word out. So this just happened last month, and we're having our first meeting with the team to implement this, start implementing it later today. And as part of that competition, Heading Home is going to get $10,000 specifically to implement this student team proposal. So we're looking forward to that. Next slide. Thanks. I mentioned the kind of regional approach we're taking. We didn't feel like anything would really be successful if we only focused on Bloomington or Monroe County. So we are starting to work with the counties in Region 10. This is an example of some outreach we're doing in Lawrence County. We held a convening last fall there to talk about just what the needs were for Lawrence County. And the mayor of Bedford came, one of the township trustees, and several others who were working in that space. And it was interesting because there was some skepticism on the part of some of the elected officials about whether there really was a need for any additional services there, which the people who are working in the shelters know that there is need. But we partnered with Laura Littlepage, who teaches a course on homelessness and has done some work like this in other counties, to do some research about the situation there, because one of the things that if you're trying to get people to address needs, they have to be convinced that those needs exist. So she started collecting some data. They're going to be going for in-person interviews, going to food pantries and shelters and the library and other places, just to try to get a handle on, I think that if you don't see people, that doesn't mean they aren't there. So the folks that are living in their cars or living in what we would consider uninhabitable, trailers or places that don't have running water, electricity, that kind of thing. You need to identify the reality on the ground. So that's what we're hoping to do. And then take a report so that the decision makers will have something concrete to make their, hopefully, resource allocation. And then that's when us and our interns went down to visit the men's shelter down there, the men's warming center, and just kind of get to know the people there and what they're working on down in Lawrence County. So we're, I would say our best connections now are in Morgan and Lawrence, but it's a lot of territory, and so we have a lot of work to do in that regard. Next slide, please. Landlord outreach. Two of the things that we've identified kind of globally: accessibility to units, housing units. We need more housing units, and we need landlords to give us access to the units that they have. Case managers are the other piece of the human beings and the physical space. So to address the landlord outreach, the landlords are, they have a lot of options in this market, as you know. And so when they're approached with somebody who has a voucher, they're not necessarily eager to take that tenant. And so we have a range of things that we're doing to try to incentivize more landlords to accept tenants with vouchers. We're working with the Housing Authority to develop some recruitment videos. Tatiana took the lead in that, interviewing some landlords who do accept tenants with vouchers and telling them their stories, what their experience has been and why they do it. And then also talking to some tenants about how life-changing it has been for their family to get stable housing. So that's one thing. Those videos will be done in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Is that right? Maybe tomorrow. Or tomorrow. Awesome. Another partnership with BHA is the Landlord Risk Mitigation Fund. It's basically like an insurance policy for landlords. So if damage is done to their units in excess of their deposit, they can tap this fund to get reimbursed for renovating and fixing those damages. If the tenant leaves without paying rent and that kind of thing. So this is really a VHA program, but they only had funds to provide that support within the city of Bloomington. And so we're providing some funding so that they can also provide support to landlords who are outside of Bloomington, Monroe County, the rest of Monroe County. And then we are in the very early stages of this, just creating a landlord task force so we can organize and have more coordinated approach to landlord outreach, because each agency has the relationships with landlords, but I feel like it would be more powerful if we had everybody at the table and talk about how we want to strategize this to reach more landlords in an effective way. Okay, next slide. And then I'm going to toss it over to Tatiana for this next piece.
So has anyone ever heard of Built for Zero before? Never. Okay, great. So Built for Zero is a national organization, and actually their scope of work even goes outside of the US, but they're based in the US. They partner with communities to take a data-driven approach to ending homelessness. So we joined Built for Zero in May of 2022, and in the beginning stages of Built for Zero, basically they wanted us to start looking at how do we capture our data. Our region uses a data system called HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System, to basically track people's experience through our system. So, maybe how long have they been homeless? What have their experiences been? Maybe even identifying what have been their barriers to housing. What was their length of stay within the system? Are they experiencing episodic homelessness or chronic homelessness, et cetera? So one of the biggest pieces of Built for Zero, like I said, is a data-driven approach. So we have been tasked with cleaning and improving our data quality for our region. So like you see in this little infographic, in July, we started to begin just reporting our data, just our metrics of what we were able to capture. But then in November, between July and November, we started to do some mapping and gapping of noticing where like the insufficiencies within our data. And we started to make new policies based off of those insufficiencies. So we made a regional policy to improve our data quality. We made a regional policy to improve our street outreach work that was being done within our community through various agencies. And then in January, we started making more data-informed decisions. When we implemented something I'm going to talk about in a second called veteran case conferencing. And lastly, we hope to share our data. It's not enough to just report data, to talk about data, but to share it with the community, people who this may not be like their main scope of work or their interests. We hope to have a public data dashboard to inform our region of where we're at in terms of our crises of people experiencing homelessness by June of this year. And if you can click to the next slide for me. To go more in depth about a specific example of what taking a data-driven approach looks like, we implemented this thing called veteran case conferencing. As you can see here, lots of happy representations of different agencies. Case conferencing, like you see, is an interagency network that has client-focused meetings to identify housing next steps. So every other week, this group of people, amongst others who aren't pictured here, needs to discuss the veterans within our region experiencing homelessness. And during our meetings, we'll just go down a list of every person experiencing homelessness and what is their barrier, you know, what has either caused them to be homeless in the first place, what's keeping them from housing now, or what are some challenges that we can, as a group, bring all of our resources to the table? You know, maybe one agency can, you know, take on helping them with some medical care needs. Like, I don't know if you guys know about HealthNet, they're a street medicine team in Bloomington. You know, maybe we can help with the housing first case management and connecting with other services, et cetera. So you can see that resource pooling is really powerful because since starting this in January, we've been able to house 12 veterans since January. And there are, I think, about 10 who are currently homeless that we're currently still talking about and trying to help and just identify ways that, yeah, that we can support these veterans. We actually have a meeting this Wednesday. Are there any questions about what I said? I said a lot of things with data and this and that, but just want to make sure you guys are with me.
Yeah, so the data that you guys have already collected, is that all in a closed system? And it won't be till June until you release any of that to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we like how I'm kind of sharing the numbers with you, like informally, like, you know, we're willing to do that. But in terms of, yeah, like a press release, we're not going to do that till later. So we know that our data is what Built for Zero calls quality data. Because one of the issues that we've been struggling with is that not all agencies who are homeless service providers actually utilize this data system. All the federally funded ones are required to, but some who have private funding don't. So we're trying to navigate that discrepancy. Because if we were to report now, our numbers would be way lower than they actually are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm really interested in this kind of cross-agency approach. Are there any other examples of, this seems like it's focused on veterans experiencing homelessness. Are there any other kind of cross-agency groups that meet like this that you're aware of, or on any other topics? It seems like it might be very effective.
Yeah, this is actually our whole like mantra of heading home, is that everything is done better when we're together.
Yeah.
You know, we say all the time, and it sounds cheesy and cliche, but like our community is stronger, like when we work together. So we have a cross-agency training committee, which is also not these people exactly, but also different representatives from each agency who meet on a monthly basis to discuss training needs. So we've posted 2 different ones. One was a winter-related trauma training to give first responders training to help them what am I trying to say? Relieve winter-related injuries, is what I'm trying to say. We also had one that's about housing first and, you know, supporting the work of those, you know, working in the field of housing security, because it is hard work. We have one coming up that is to be determined, but in May, that's going to be specifically focused on supporting the work of case managers, you know, talking about best practices in housing first case management and other things. We also have another another committee that is cross-agency of an advocacy committee that Mary can talk about in a second, because she'll be talking about our advocacy work. So yeah, to answer your question, we're centered around working with other agencies.
And specifically for this type of collaboration, we're kind of viewing this as a bit of a pilot project because it hasn't been done this way before. The framework that Built for Zero suggests is that instead of trying to tackle everything, to pick segments of the population. And so because veterans have so many resources available, and it's a smaller number, relatively speaking, we picked the veteran focus first, but this proof of concept is going really well. So we hope to have similar groups for other segments of the population, so chronic, families, youth, elderly, of course, there's like intersection of some people are chronic and elderly, or, you know, so, but I think that this is a really good approach. And because it's working so well and people I think are working well together, that it'll be an easier sell to say, all right, what's next? So yeah, and this was a Built for Zero. I didn't go to the conference, but there was a conference in December where Tatiana and Forrest, Emily Pike, went to, kind of learn a little bit more about how to do this. Okay, so yeah, as Tatiana mentioned, there's a touch on some of our advocacy efforts. I don't know if you saw it, but we held a mayoral candidate forum focused on low-income housing and homelessness issues last week. Gosh, it was pretty well attended. I think we had over 100 people there, and heard some differences between the candidates. We're holding what we're calling a learning session for city council candidates. As you know, there's a ton of people running for city council this year. And we thought that instead of just having everybody do their 3-minute spiel, we take the opportunity to bring people who are working in the field to talk to them about what we feel city council should know, and what specific actions the city council could take to improve our housing security in this area. And so it's more of a, and then have the opportunity for them to ask questions, and if there's anything that they want to know that we didn't cover. And then it's also open to public, so it's kind of public education as well. And then we're also organizing, this is very new. We have a spreadsheet basically that people can sign up for to speak at public commentary about housing issues, low-income housing and homelessness. And our idea is that if we can get a diverse set of voices every meeting of the city council, county council, and county board of commissioners, not necessarily asking for anything specific. If you do have something specific, that's great, but just kind of just say, you know, here's my experience, or here is something I'm working on, or here's something my agency's working on. Just kind of like that drip, drip, drip to keep the issues in front of those elected bodies, so that when there is something that comes up, they're kind of more prepared for. We're laying the groundwork so that they have a better understanding of the breadth and depth of the issues. Okay, and I guess that rounds out our presentation. We do have a monthly newsletter that just kind of focuses on, I don't know if any of you get it.
I'm already signed up.
Okay, that talks about what we're doing, but also tries to highlight things that are happening for other agencies in this work. We have a second newsletter that goes out in the middle of the month that's focused on the People of Housing Security series that Tatiana has spearheaded. It's basically highlighting people, frontline workers in housing security at our agencies. And gosh, how many have been done so far? How many stories have, do you want to read? Yeah.
Today is the 12th story.
Yeah, so we push that on social media. And then if you're interested, we have available just a monthly project summary that goes into a little more detail, all the different things that we're working on. These are kind of some of the highlights, but we have a lot of other projects going into.
I have a couple more questions.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah, first I wanted to follow up on the landlord slide. I've been a landlord in Bloomington. So I had some questions on that. So I've heard that this is the case, that there are more people with vouchers than landlords. who
Yeah.
Give them housing in Bloomington.
Yeah.
Do you know the numbers on this?
So I don't know that, I can't recall.
So you're saying there are apartments that are already priced affordably,
Mhm.
that the landlords are already renting to other people at the prices that the vouchers could afford, right? Because I'm assuming the vouchers are for very affordably priced units.
Right.
They're not vouchers for market rate apartments.
Well, I mean, they'd be market rate, if that's what's being,
Well, sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, so the VHA, the last report that I got, out of all of the vouchers that they have given to people, 40% are unused. So 40%, and I don't know what the actual numbers are, but 40% of people who have vouchers aren't able to find
And have they done the research or have you to know if that's because there simply aren't enough affordable apartments for people to use those vouchers? Or is it because the landlord is saying, no, I won't take a voucher, or that there simply aren't apartments priced in that price range?
I think it's a combination of factors. So it is, you
Because
know.
I mean, again,
occupancy.
having been a landlord myself, I know people, I mean, if you know,
Right,
money's money, and if it's guaranteed money, it's usually better, so.
right.
Not sure why someone would want.
Well, it is, in fairness, there are more sort of requirements, so you have to have an inspection
Okay,
by VHA to make sure that it meets the HUD requirements.
so
for
it's different than
habitability.
the hand. The normal
It's
hand
different than
inspection.
hand, so that's one thing that we've heard, is it can be a barrier.
Mhm.
Sometimes, and actually, so I'm on the board of VHA, and one of our other board members, who's a realtor and owns some property, has just been going through the process of doing that, of getting, she wants to offer to tenants with vouchers. And she said she, like, literally like a stack of all the regulations and requirements, and so she found that to be, I mean, she's in the business and she found that to be pretty intimidating, so we're looking at, like, how can we, and that might be, what can VHA do, or what can Heading Home do in partnership to create like a guide, like a simplified guide, like, here's a checklist of what you need to do as a landlord.
Or possibly funds to make improvements to the apartment.
To have like a renovation program that would be separate, so we got some ideas.
Okay.
But I think that it's also that, you know, occupancy rate is like 98%. I went to the apartment association meeting, and there was somebody who had collected that data in Monroe County, so there are, you know, it's a very competitive market. You know, I'm a renter, so I have had that experience myself. And I think anybody who's out there, regardless of your price point, you know that that's true. So that's part of it too.
Because I just saw, when I saw that approach is to encourage landlords, I'm like, is that really the problem? That that the landlord is like, no, I don't want vouchers,
kind of-
or is
well,
it, or is it just that there's not enough apartments already with that price range? So
Yeah.
that they can't find an apartment because there's simply not enough of them.
I think that, like I said, I think it's sort of a mash of all that. I think there's also, stigma, against tenants in some cases. There are these kind of apocryphal tales.
I've had
of-
people tell me, oh, don't ever do that, and I've never believed any of it because, you know, my dad was a landlord and he always had people on public housing. So I knew better, but
Right.
I've heard people say that.
And I think even if you, as a landlord, don't have that experience yourself, but you talk to people,
Yeah,
it could even
yeah.
like 3 times removed, like.
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
heard
No.
something else.
Everybody will tell you that. If they hear you on, oh, don't ever rent to these kind of people or those kind of
Yeah.
people or whatever. Yeah.
There's also people who, or landlords who have, background checks that a lot of the clients who are eligible with vouchers also, you know, they don't pass background checks. So they're not either willing to take a chance on a person, so.
For credit check, yeah, bad credit,
checks,
yeah, or a criminal record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
so there's-
eviction records
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah, so there are a lot of barriers.
So there's a lot more than just the landlord that's not wanting to take a voucher necessarily.
Well, I mean, if they require you to go through all those checks, that's a way of.
It's not about the voucher though, that's about not wanting someone
Yeah,
with bad
but is
credit
it-
or.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that there's a sort of gray area. there.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
And then my other question is, so like big picture, okay, like this program Built for Zero, I know it works incrementally, which is very smart. But then my question is, okay, well, what's the quantitative analysis or the plan that is quantitatively saying, we have a plan by this year to eliminate chronic homelessness? And we have done this research to know that these are the steps we're gonna take. Because I know from my previous outreach with you, you know, I asked when you talked about that veteran case, my first question was like, okay, what about the people who aren't veterans, who don't have money sitting there to give them housing? What's gonna be
Yeah.
your plan for everyone else?
right.
So, you know, I'm wondering like, okay, how is this approach? And sorry, this is a tough question. How is this approach actually going to make a systemic change in our community to end this problem? Rather than simply chasing after the symptoms and saying, but look, we're doing so much work to chase after the symptoms. Isn't that great? Of course it is, but how is this creating a systemic change? And you know, maybe does part of that change require addressing the causes of rising unaffordability of housing and possibly creating local funds, you know, because it's nice that veterans get funds from the federal government, but does that solution entail doing that kind of analysis on our market? And then saying, okay, where should we get the funds to provide housing for the people who can't afford it in our community? Knowing that because I feel like, I'm gonna stop pretty soon, because I know my question's going on, but I feel like knowing that housing prices are gonna keep rising, and for us to pretend like we don't know it, and then be shocked every year when they keep rising and more people can't afford to live, like, it doesn't make sense. We need to start assuming they're gonna continue to rise and act accordingly to end this, right? So that's my question.
Okay. I'll try to.
Sorry, I know it's so tough.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure if I mentioned this when we just discussed, we had our discussion, but this veterans case conferencing is an add-on to a system that we're already working called coordinated entry. So you want to talk a little bit about coordinated entry?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I want to give a clarifying statement before that. Because when I explained Built for Zero, I forgot to acknowledge the fact that you guys were starting at like base one of understanding what Built for Zero is. So Built for Zero doesn't just want us to track people experiencing homelessness. I should have clarified that. Built for Zero wants us to make structural change within our homeless response system so that when someone's experiencing homelessness, that it's rare when it happens, it's brief, and then it's not repeating. So that's the whole reason that tracking the data matters, but that when we're analyzing the data, we're looking at, okay, what's causing inflow this month? Where are the people coming from?
Exactly. The homeless response is very different than looking at what's causing the inflow and addressing that.
No, for sure.
Right? Those are
Yeah, part of our data is looking at, okay, how many people entered this month? Why, like, where did they come from? Whether that's their first experience of homelessness, whether they were homeless and housed and not homeless again, etc. But also looking at our outflow, where are people going? Are they going back to the streets, going back to homelessness? Are they being housed? Are they being housed with subsidies? Are they being housed by, like, within their own financial means, etc. So that's why the data is important, but I should have clarified that earlier, that it's all about creating structural change, which is part of the question that you're asking, which I think is really important. But when Mary was just talking about coordinated entry, is that within our data system, there's a thing called coordinated entry. And basically, there are assessments that a person experiencing homelessness is given to assess their vulnerability. The higher their vulnerability indicates that they may be in need of something called permanent supportive housing, which is like flats, some other places you guys have probably heard of before. People who range like a middle score, usually a rapid housing, which are like having that federal funding or local funding to house people more quickly again. But people who
supportive housing, people would come and check and help them take care of clean their apartment or something.
What was your question? Sorry.
Permanent supportive housing, isn't that where someone is it like,
There's case management and support. I don't know that it goes to the extent of like going in and cleaning and
or making sure that they're cleaning, I mean, but like.
there is case management support of different levels depending on the need. Yeah.
Yeah, permanent supportive housing is usually people who either have a mental health disorder or a substance abuse disorder or both. But yeah, like Mary said, there is ongoing case management who is there locally and in the apartment complex. But essentially, once a person is given this assessment, a case manager will be able to know what housing programs they qualify for. People who score lower on this assessment are usually people who are able to self-resolve. It's maybe something that's just like a night or like a week. The people who obviously are higher are typically chronic or have other vulnerabilities, disabilities, traumas, et cetera. But yeah, people are being housed through the system. There is a coordinated entry meeting, so different committees representing different agencies, like we talked earlier, will meet and say, okay, these are the top 3 people who are eligible for permanent supported housing, or top 5 for reparative housing, or et cetera. Does that kind of address some of the things you were talking about?
So I guess then, so what if you have a large portion of people who, you know, simply need permanent supportive housing, there's not enough of it. You know, I guess what's the next plan?
Well, I would like to just pause and say, we don't have this all figured out. So these are questions that we ask ourselves too, like, where do we get funding if we have additional needs? Because clearly we do have additional needs. I feel like this first year, since we started, was really trying to get the lay of the land and start building some relationships. And we're kind of at the point now where we're rolling out some projects. We've got some things we're trying. We have identified some funding sources that we'll probably pursue. One is through Built for Zero as a partner with Built for Zero. They have a foundation that provides grants for identified community needs. So in some cases, in some communities, they've built permanent supportive housing for veterans. They funded staff, so we as a community say, we really need like a dedicated data person. That's something we could apply for a grant for. So they received $100 million MacArthur Foundation grant for dispersing out to their community partners. So that's one thing. Last year, we applied for an IU Health Community Impact Investment Grant for an idea that we had to do rental renovations and connecting those funds that we would have available for rental renovations to long-term commitments on the part of the landlord for housing people with vouchers. So we did not get that grant, but we're planning to stand up a pilot project for that so that we can then go back to them and say, all right, we have a proof of concept for this program. We would like additional funding. So, I mean, I feel like that's one of our charges longer term is to identify those needs and then to be the group that pursues some of those funding opportunities.
Yeah, my concern with grants is just that it's not sustainable funding, right? You apply for a grant, you get it, you build it, it's gone. And so, you know, I'm wondering if Heading Home is preparing or has any plans to create a more sustainable systemic approach where our community would be like permanently funding our housing needs.
Well, we're not there yet, but like I said, we haven't got it all figured out, and we are talking about sustainability as an issue. I mean, it's not, you know, we have ARPA funds for programming, but those have to be spent by the end of 2026. So that is definitely on our mind.
Sorry, I'm gonna ask one more question.
Go for it.
What was the major reason for housing Heading Home under United Way as opposed to under the city or county?
Well, I think because it was a regional approach and that, and I can't speak for,
It is a regional problem because people do
it's a regional problem
around.
I can't speak for the city or county administration, and I wasn't in all of the conversations about when this was formed before my time.
Okay.
But I think that that was part of it, that the city would have accountability of the city, the county would have accountability of the county, that they maybe didn't feel as comfortable taking that regional approach.
So do they have accountability though, this way, in your mind?
I think they do. I mean, I guess it's how you define accountability, but I think in part because of those partnerships that like the city holds the county accountable, and the county holds the city accountable. I mean, they're all part of the conversation and an advisory group. Maybe not to the extent that you would envision, or maybe not even to the extent that is appropriate, but I feel like in some ways we're like figuring this out. as
You
we
have
go.
accountability to them.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, does the city have accountability to this problem to the people
Mhm.
of Bloomington?
Yeah,
There's an election.
And they're helping,
I know it's a tough question.
Do
Not
their
necessarily,
own.
I'm just curious.
I feel like,
I don't want to get you in trouble either, so.
well, there is that. But I feel like these questions are legitimate and things that are hard to answer. And that's why we need to have somebody like you asking them.
My pleasure.
I mean, no, I'm sincere about that. Because it's a challenge that, we've taken on. And we know that we don't have it figured out. And we know that we need like all hands on deck to try to figure out in a way that is really what we want people to be living their best lives, and we want people who are not housing insecure to feel like it's their responsibility to, like it's not on the heads of it's not just a burden for nonprofits, or not just for the city, or not just for the county. So, but that accountability issue, yeah, that's a tough one.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming
for the info.
sure. You have any questions?
in. No, I'm just taking it all in. I had, like, some very new to all of it. So I didn't even know this program was here, so it was very interesting just learning what that was out there. What you guys are doing, I like the whole different groups and you're kind of bringing them together. I think that's.
Breaking silos.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
So, yeah, I because so many like meetings where they're talking about that just for like hospital stuff and how do we bring like respiratory and physical therapy and all these guys together. So it just makes sense to, like I said, make those silos and bring people together and
Yeah.
work together to, if you're all tackling these same issues, why not have some sort of bring them together and tackle them together. So. Yeah, I really like, thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you. And yeah, I think you have my email, and anytime you have questions or follow-ups, we can be happy to. Yeah.
And I'm sure Jason and Cammie will be eagerly watching the video.
Yeah.
So I know they're sorry they couldn't be in attendance today. So, yeah, and thank you guys for doing that work to start bringing everyone together, because usually when you talk to one person at one agency, it's always just like, well, what can we do? You know, we're just like one agency and we can't do everything. And so it's great to have that first approach. And it seems like you are the right people to be pulling people together and coordinating it in a data-driven, evidence-based, you know, really community-centered way. So thanks for doing that tough work, because I know it is tough work. You have to bring people together over an issue that is really tough to solve.
And I just
But if
want
any
to
community
say,
can solve it, I think Bloomington can.
yeah, so real quick, we talked last year when you were still like developing this in Mark's class.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar. I'm sorry it took me.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and you were talking about like, I'm always trying to- the data like analysis, like I know you were just figuring that out, so I'm really thankful that you're able to share like the process of that. We'd also mentioned, or I talked to you, I was working on a different like paper on unstable housing, you know, the people that don't meet the houselessness criteria.
Right.
But they're still
Couch
going,
surfing.
couch surfing and over occupant, like too many people, not enough space.
Right. Or just hanging on. I'm reading Matthew Desmond's book, newest book called Poverty by America. And he was the author of Evicted, if you've read that. And so just talking about like how this deck is stacked against you, and people who maybe have housing now but are living paycheck to paycheck. And just, you know, we mentioned the People of Housing Security series, and we just are publishing one today on the eviction prevention program. So you go to these eviction hearings, you see people who are just struggling in that way. So that getting people help before they actually lose their housing is an important piece. I mean, it's all important, right? So one of the things that we're just kind of constantly faced with is, what do you do first? What do you tackle first? Or, you know, at least initially,
When it comes down to like the money thing, raising $20 could take someone from paycheck to paycheck to, I can't go, you know.
right, or any kind of emergency, medical emergency with the kids, the childcare, all of those things, transportation, it's all part of it.
And hopefully we get the non-repeating part, you know, we start working on that, but then it's like, how do we make it not happen? Or really be brief that we have those services and, you know, with vouchers, when we were talking about vouchers, 40% people aren't using their vouchers, but also you move once a year, maybe. And so it's like, when in that one tiny, small time frame, how can you find a house that's gonna accept your vouchers? If your current place doesn't and you just got approved for them, that's really challenging. So I'm definitely gonna check out the website you shared with us too.
Okay.
Since you said you just created that about a month ago. And then, so as the community advisory on public safety, I like to ask with our guest speakers, like housing, public safety, they go hand in hand, you know? For our commission, for the most part, we view all of these challenges that people face, like that's part of the public safety umbrella, is like keeping people safe, keeping people housed, keeping people protected from the elements and everything. So as a commission, is there anything we can do? Or, you know, when it comes to our recommendations, we're working with the IU START program, hopefully to get some more research and data about housing as well. Like, is there any partnerships or collaborations that you guys are seeing? I know you're coming to hopefully next week to the meeting.
Yeah, let me think on that, because I'm sure there are. I just don't know exactly what that might look like right now. But if you could also give that some thought about how you might want to plug in, or you think it's most appropriate to plug in. I mean, I am really interested in the event you're putting on, so I'll put that on my calendar and look forward to getting, we can help promote that.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there are a lot of interested groups. And it's just a matter of, you know, we have capacity, just the two of us. So just figuring that out, but yeah, give us some thought on it too. Absolutely. And I appreciate the offer.
And like I said, we are with specifically the IU START program, looking at housing in the community. How can we increase it? I wish Jason was here because I know he's been the main moderator of that discussion with the START program, but we'll be able to, I'll have him share that with you.
Okay,
too.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Meeting all of you. Yeah, that was great.
No,
Thanks,
thank you.
HummingHomeGuide.org. Yep, yep. Got it.
And if you all didn't have access to those slides, I will send them to you right after the meeting.
Cool. Okay,
All right.
thanks again.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Now I guess we're on to other business. Research committee membership, first one.
Oh, yeah, that's when I talked on. Do you want to be part of the research?
Yeah. So they meet separately. Do they come in here again, or how's that?
So it's a different room, but yeah, I'm trying to think, it's Wednesdays, I believe. But now that we're down to 2 people, we can always meet up and, you know, yeah, it's every first Wednesday from 9 to 10.
AM?
Yes, but we can, like I said, we can change that up in the future. So I think there is some scheduling conflict that hopefully, when is your typical?
I work 7 to 4-ish every day, so
Okay.
this is already a hard
Yeah.
one to get to. Luckily, I've looked out, a lot of these Mondays are slower days, so I can get away for a little while, I take leave at lunch but yeah, I'm gonna do 2 days to So that'll be the only thing. I would like to join, but if it's 9 to 10 on Wednesdays, I don't know if I'll
Okay.
always be able to make that. Unless it's like Zoom, I can come in or watch your guys' meeting and then make input or something like that. That would be an option, but yeah.
Yeah, we can, I can talk with Jason if he's able to come on Wednesday about it, but I prefer later in the day as well. For most
Yeah,
of the time,
science
yeah.
building.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a possibility.
Okay.
All right, B, reparations and atonement special committee for Juneteenth event.
I can talk to that.
Okay,
I've been talking to Cami about that. So Kamala is already on a committee of the Monroe County Historical Society. I don't remember exactly what it's called. I think it's something on Black history, perhaps. And they have been talking about having CAPS commission or a special committee of our commission coordinate and organize an event in Bloomington to celebrate Juneteenth. And it would be specifically organized around genealogy and African-American or Black residents and helping and encouraging them to start their genealogical research if they haven't already. And so since that committee was dissolved a while ago, we discussed whether it should be a standing committee again or a special committee. And we decided that a special committee would do since we were hoping to just use it to plan this event. So similar to what we're doing with the other special committee. And so we wanted to ask the commission to establish a reparations and atonement special committee to organize this Juneteenth event. And so it would be reaching out with the Monroe County Historical Society. And then there's also an organization in Indianapolis that does Black genealogy. So I think it's like the Historical Society agreed to pay for a speaker from the Indianapolis Black Genealogy Organization to come and speak. And then we would possibly just find the meeting space, whether that would be in the Historical Society or maybe the genealogy room at the library perhaps. And, you know, kind of do what we're doing for this event, just do a little marketing. And yeah, we're not expecting to ask for like any city funds or, you know, do anything too controversial. But yeah, that's the ask, is that could we create a special committee for reparations and atonement specifically to plan this event? And it would currently be made up of myself and Kamala.
you guys are both. Okay, I guess you're.
Yeah, I know she's
Yeah.
not here, and so
Yeah.
you guys just have to take my word for
Yeah.
it, but that I'm not just like
No, I just want to
putting
make
this
sure.
all out there, but yeah,
Sure.
yeah, that's what we're asking. If we could have a special committee so that when we talk, that when she talks and I start talking as well, to organize this, that we are officially legally acting on behalf of the commission and we have the commission's permission to be doing these arrangements. Since that's the rule. If you're organizing an event, you have to have a special commission or a special committee. Or be a committee, either a committee or a special committee.
My one caution with a committee of two members is that anytime the two of you speak with each other, that's the entire committee, and the commission has officially and directly appointed you, that would be subject to the open door laws. So anytime you and Kamala wanted to speak about this event, it would have to be open to the public. Maybe a difficult barrier to, you know, every conversation.
Well, then maybe instead we could just ask, or would it be okay for the CAPS Commission officially to produce this event where Kamala and I are the main ones doing it on behalf of the commission?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just looking for the commission's authority to organize the
Yeah,
event, I think the
that's what
commission
we're
would
looking for.
delegate that to one member, or even two members without creating a committee.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
I think more appropriate too, that way you
Okay.
can talk to each other and not have to have a whole
Yeah.
meeting just for like, hey,
Also, with the Zoom thing, wouldn't they both have to be in person?
It's
Two people?
50%,
Okay,
so one.
yeah,
Uh,
you would have to come down here every time to talk,
Right, well, about the event,
yeah,
might be more than yours by off. yes.
No, yeah.
It might make sense to delegate sort of the event, if the commission wants to put on this event, it could delegate to one member or two members.
so I guess we should vote whether we want to take that on.
Yeah.
And then vote
Yeah,
to make it just delegate that to you two.
yeah.
Yeah.
But, well, I have some questions first, you're
Okay.
fine. So I mean, that, like, I love the sound of that, like the genealogy of it and everything like that. I'm just confused, because if, like, the tax commission sponsoring it, right, like, that would be like, if we were able to secure funds, we could say, oh, you know, sponsored through the tax commission. But I'm confused, like, when you're going out and marketing, you're like the community advisory on public safety commission, and how that would relate to, like, the purpose of this event, which is genealogy
oh,
for
yeah.
Juneteenth and everything.
So, the reason why we were kind of nesting it under reparations and atonement is, because reparations and atonement is related more to like social justice. And social justice is, one of the important key bedrocks of a safe community. And since there has been major racial injustice in this community, like the People's Park used to be the black market, that was like firebombed, and, you know, I'm sure there's many other instances of racial injustice in this community. That, doing a project like this that celebrates Juneteenth, and specifically, you know, reaffirms the safety and the value of Black residents in our community, and the value of their knowing their history within this community, and to really, you know, to help them specifically because of the social barriers that exist, not just in our community, but all over the nation. Like, I think, you know, there are barriers for Black people especially to do genealogy, you know, possibly because their ancestors may have been enslaved people, or simply because of not having access to the same resources that other people have to do that research. And so this would be an instance of, I mean, not formal reparations, but an attempt for our commission to try to perform, you know, these type of reparations, even if they're, you know, not economic, substantive reparations.
They're the social ones, though.
But they are, you know, hopefully, you know, reparations that not only would make a difference with the individuals, but make our community stronger, because it will help these individuals in the community who attend the event to feel more connected and feel more like they belong, and that this community is theirs, because they can see their family tree, you know, represented in the history of our community.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah,
That's my
I,
take on it anyway. And I think that will make us a safer community, you know.
Is the city doing anything for Juneteenth already, or?
Usually in Bloomington, there's usually, something put on at Banneker
Okay.
Center, a Juneteenth. And I'm trying to think of I think the Banneker Center is the official organizer of that event. Can you research it? Because yeah. I think the Banneker Center usually sponsors it, and the Banneker Center is not a city, but it's like a nonprofit. It's like a private nonprofit. It's on the west side, and it's I think it used to be a Black school.
The Community and Family Resources Department would probably be the best resource for what events may be coming up that the city is hosting.
Okay.
I do see some celebrations the last several years. I don't know if there have been any announced this early for this year.
Okay, so Kenny and I can reach out to Community and Family Resources as well
Yeah,
on that, and maybe we can cross market the events.
I know they had one last year at Switch Yard. I don't know if the city directly sponsored it, but.
Yeah.
It was a pretty
I
big
just think
event
it
at
would
Switch
be-
Yard.
I just know about the one at Banneker usually.
Yeah, I would think it would be appropriate to do with them, not
Yeah.
maybe just us. So like, as you, I
That
mean,
was a
it
very
does,
good suggestion.
it does-
Yeah,
as you have said, all that stuff for promoting ticket and stuff, but I
if
think
nothing else, cross promote.
Yeah, it just
Make
seems
sure it's not
maybe just us by
scheduling.
ourselves doing the only Juneteenth thing, it might be more appropriate to work with the other communities that are already doing, it, like, hey, this is our contribution
Yeah,
to what you guys are already doing.
yes.
I
So
think,
last year, there was a city of Bloomington, IU Neil Martin Black Cultural Center Juneteenth celebration.
Okay.
Toya Moss in Community Field Resources, she's the Safe and Civil City Director.
Okay, great.
Looks like she's the contact, so you might. reach
Yeah.
out to her.
Yeah, I'm actually doing outreach with Beverly Calendar Anderson, this week on the alternative public safety outreach, so I can touch base with her on that. But that's a great suggestion. We'll be sure to, try to reach out to everyone else in the city who's doing Juneteenth events and make sure that there's no conflicts, and hopefully we can collaborate and cross-pollinate, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no issue. We wouldn't have to vote on this. They're not creating a committee or anything like that.
No, trying to think of whether.
And then Cammie and I would just give monthly updates to the commission on how that's going.
I guess if there's an event you all would like the commission to sort of put on, you might do some of this work in the next month. Should be well enough in advance to kind of let the commission know exactly what you got in mind. The commission could vote if anything, to just say, yes, go ahead and do this event on our behalf. I think that's probably all that's needed.
Okay.
That sounds okay to you.
If you just want to do that outreach and hopefully by next
Yeah.
month, we'll have a good solid idea of how it's
Yeah,
gonna go.
well, and we're all, getting good at outreach this week, so Jason and Cammie and I are definitely getting our outreach practice in. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. That's a great idea to do more outreach though with the community before.
Especially with that, like that kind of event, because you want to be able to, bring all the voices that have been working on it or
Makes
done it in
sense.
the past, all that kind of stuff.
if there's other events already, then you being there with them. Not just
Exactly.
drawing them
And they
away
can
from
have
you
our
or-
flyers and we can have theirs.
So we'll
Thanks.
talk about that more next time. Table item from 6 March 2023 START program. You want to speak on that? You said you were.
We don't have Jason here, he's been the primary contact for that,
Okay.
so we'll wait for him next month.
Bloomington Police Department, communications and questions.
Did you have
want to lead on
anything?
that, or do we have those questions available?
so- I think those were Renee, I thought that was Renee's document. I was checking on Google Drive and it looks like Renee was the owner of that document. And I know she was certainly the one, I think, pushing to get those questions sent off.
Okay,
And I mean, I personally, we, like, as far as alternative public safety outreach, and I made it clear in the last meeting, our special committee is already doing outreach with BPD on that particular topic. And I personally would not think that the commission needs to currently reach out to BPD on with other questions. But if anyone else here does, I'm open to hearing.
Do we have
Yeah.
access to be able to get those questions and see what they were, or?
Oh, they're on the drive.
Drive.
Yeah, you can look, I suggest looking at them outside of the meeting.
Yeah,
If you're not on there, we will.
I was gonna say, I don't think I.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you should get added to that.
Yeah, then I guess.
They were
since you get-
already actually sent to the chief and then we had to ask the chief to try to ignore them because they had been sent without the permission of the commission. And anyway, feel free to look at the questions.
So your meeting
They're on
next
a shared
Tuesday is
drive.
already taking some of those and getting and moving.
No, none of those questions are
Okay.
ones that we're
But
asking.
the general, some of that, I think, general questions on public safety, you guys will be asked something similar. I think the document was actually created before I even started the commission. But it was the questions I remember, that weren't related to public, like your specific work is, they were kind of, based on, you know, anti-Semitism, white supremacy, that kind of thing, which, I think all of that was written in like 2021.
Probably when this commission was first, yeah, and I did notice that Renee's name, she's the owner of that document. And like, I personally don't, you know, we're, in the outreach that we're doing, we are being collaborative with BPD. And a lot of the ways those questions are worded is not very collaborative. And so I don't support having any of those questions sent again to
Okay.
BPD. But again, I'm open to hearing if anyone else thinks we should. I would prefer to have this taken off the agenda. And, you know, I mean, if possible, even removing the document, since Renee's not here anymore, that was her document, but it's up to you all. I think we should keep it in there. That's
I
fine, too.
know that not only Renee put stuff on that document, it's my understanding that most people in the commission did, and obviously we don't have most of those people here anymore.
Mhm.
But for relevancy, for
Yeah.
people who want to read it, we have a lot of stuff on that whole drive that's not
Yeah.
relevant anymore, but
Yeah,
it's always good to have
So
that
then you-
historic record.
okay.
I guess if it was kind of her lead that she was doing, and she's not here anymore, no one else is really working on it,
That's my take anyway.
Yeah,
then what's the, I guess I'm leaning with you, what's the
Yeah.
point if no one's working on it?
yeah, I think,
That's just my 2 cents on it.
And I thought it was actually conflicting with the collaboration that we're trying to do on the alternative public safety outreach, which is why I said something when I saw that those questions had been sent to, so anyway, yeah, I would prefer to take that off the agenda for future meetings.
I think, Matthew, you are on the shared drive, so
Okay.
get home and see that you can't find that, just let us know.
Okay, perfect.
Ash probably had it and then I just forgot to tell him.
And she sent me a lot of things that I might have just missed it, which is more than likely than not being sent it.
You have trouble accessing it or just can't
Okay.
find it, just let us
Well, since it conflicts with your thing that you're actively doing, she's not here anymore. I was not even a part of it. You weren't a part of it. It seems like it was kind of old. And
yeah,
nobody's even here to talk about it really. So I would hope to just clear space for other stuff that is actively being done. So I would
that's fine.
motion to get rid of it then.
Okay. And then if you look at the questions and decide that we need to discuss it again, and you can bring it up. at the
Yeah,
meeting.
I would
Yeah,
almost think that could be a whole second thing that's
yeah,
actively being done and if some of those wants to be brought forward. So
yeah,
I'm very big on, if no one's doing anything, let's do the stuff that people are doing. So
yeah.
I'll vote to just take that off. I agree with what you were saying and the reasoning behind it. I don't know if that has to be done. Do we just?
I don't think we have to vote
Okay,
it.
cool.
We talked
Even
about
better.
it, we'll not have it on the next one, yeah.
Boom, done.
Oh, so the amending the conflict resolution procedures is me. I met, so after our meeting, I had sent them and got a tacit approval from CJAM before we passed those bylaws, but then afterward, they got feedback from another person in their organization that a couple of the wording should be slightly changed, and I forgot to bring that to the meeting.
Well, we have 3 minutes left before 2 p.m.
Oh, okay. So we should do it. because-
That'll be on other business.
Yeah,
So do we want to add that to topics for future agendas?
yeah,
All right, so we'll add that for next time. But
Okay.
other than that, that almost gets us done.
great.
We do have the topics for next, just for next.
Well, let's talk about scheduling, because if this
Okay.
time doesn't work for you, we should talk about.
It's not
it.
ideal. I would love, I just didn't, does anybody else work or like, do they kick off for this? Because I work.
I have a flexible schedule.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
you're in
I
school, right?
have childcare responsibilities, or school, basically after 5 every day except for Fridays. So,
So
that
you're
makes
free
it
up till 5, I guess
Yes.
is it? Okay,
Except for Fridays, though.
yeah, so for break.
Fridays I'm basically free, but I can be
We
free the
have
whole
a
day.
Friday evening, might be tough for some people.
I mean, if it was up to me, I would say a little bit more towards after, that way. Most of us who work, it's not a big deal, because
Uh-huh.
for me, it's like I leave at almost noon to get here, and then by the time I'm
Yeah.
done, there's like no point going back for an hour and a half, something like that, so I'm taking a half day, but if it was at 3, we could,
Yeah,
like 2 hours, an
Uh-huh.
hour rest of work or.
that's
what
better
have
for
you.
me too, because on some days I'm actually cleaning until 3,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so we have the, actually in the Google Doc, we have a scheduling, it's a spreadsheet. So everyone, if we want to update our availability, just so that we make sure Jason and everyone else's
Yeah,
get their inputs on it and.
Since we've had some change with people leaving, do you want to can we ask that we do a new one where everybody? Or is it?
Yeah, we'll
nothing there,
just
already
delete,
there?
we'll
Okay,
delete the people that left, make sure to add you,
Okay.
and then we'll update everything.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
mhm.
Right, sweet.
We could ask, Ash,
Yeah.
when they get back to take the lead on that.
So no, ask them to make sure their availability is up to date, so we can try to find a time that works best for
And
all.
then, and the last minute before we adjourn, are there any of these topics that you for sure want added or? The CAPS report, I feel like is ongoing, that should almost be everyone, we're slowly building that, right?
I know E was also, I think, Renee's thing, so that might be able to be removed.
Okay.
What else? Parking.
Park, yeah. People have trouble
That,
parking.
that was a recommendation I think we made last year, but yeah, now it always depends on what our schedule is gonna be,
Yeah.
because now I can always find a guest spot.
Yeah,
But beforehand, I,
I get.
Oh, they have student parking? yeah.
oh, interesting. Yeah, well, I was able to get a guest spot, so until I actually run into issues on it, I'm okay with taking that off. And I know Jason takes the walks, or he doesn't have a car, and Cammy is online, so I guess we could take that off too. Duty procedures and bylaws, I don't know if we need that sitting on there.
Maybe for topics for next one, the big one could be how your meeting went. I mean, and the feedback you got and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I would like, I mean, I'll
For
be
sure,
attending via Zoom, but I would like to see what you compose and do. with all that.
definitely, yeah,
So that can be a big one. And then I think A should be at least a little bit talked about, just
Mhm.
where that's at and what we're working on. So.
We'll have a few months probably till we have to
Yeah.
submit that, but it's always good to get a head
just-
start
just
on that.
Especially since I'm new to it, I'd like
Yeah.
to see where we're at on that and what's being done. So.
and last year was our first one, so hopefully this one will be easy.
And when is that
easier.
due to the city?
July.
No specific
Okay.
date, just an annual report that's called for in local ordinance. So last year's report was in July. I don't think any dates have been picked out for this year. Evangelist was right, but last year, if you wanted to get a full sort of report, whether you want to do something similar this year, is up to you all. Whether you want to scale it back is also perfectly fine. So,
All right, so in the last 30 seconds, then I'll just, so for the big ones for next week are how your meeting went, or I mean, not next week, but next week. And then A for sure, just, I would like that, if you guys don't mind. And then maybe the research that you've been doing so far, I just want to talk about it.
Mhm.
And Jason too, you guys can
And scheduling.
schedule it, yeah. So those are the big. Four?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, there's nothing else, then I'll adjourn. Do we have to vote on ending it or?
No,
All right, awesome.
we were.
Yeah,
Good
great
stuff.
job.